like, you don't even try to get to know her. Like, get off my screen. Hey y'all, welcome back. It's Apparently Ashley, and today we're talking about Married at First Sight, Season 12, Episode 11. So this episode is focused on the 1 month anniversary for the couples. So they went on a few dates, they looked through their wedding pictures, watched their wedding video, and just reminisced on the big day that happened 4 weeks ago. There were some cute moments, there were some not cute moments. It was very interesting what happened this episode. So let's jump straight into the mess. All right, let's start with Haley and Jacob. So they had a tarot card reader come over to the apartment to like read their energies, and they just wanted a better like read on how their relationship has been going. So the reader was saying that she could feel a tense energy around like there being a lot of passion between them, or like wanting there to be some passion between them, implying like that was coming from Jacob. And she also talked about how like there's this sense of control that needs to be let go and like just let the energy flow. And so that was implying that that was coming from Haley. And Haley spoke up saying like, you know, it's no secret that like I'm controlling, like I don't know how to just like go with the flow. And the tarot card reader was saying like, you know, despite that energy that she's stealing from that their cards do show that they're compatible together. And so I guess that made Haley feel like, okay, like she said we're compatible, so let me try to, you know, actually make this work and build a connection. Mind you, y'all, she has been saying this for the past 10 episodes. Like, she keeps saying, let me try, but I don't see the effort, but we'll see. So she did also say she met with the other wives. She met with Paige and she met with Briana. They went to lunch. And she was like, you know, I just need to understand his personality a little more. Like, I don't really like his humor. Like, it's not funny to me. So I guess that's her way of also saying that she's trying to get to know him. I don't know. So she said she's about to try once again to try and build this connection. So for their 1 month anniversary, they go to a winery. They're sipping wine, eating cheese, the charcuterie, all that stuff. So then they start looking through their wedding picture album. And Jacob just kind of gets triggered by the pictures. Like, he's looking through the pictures and he's like, oh, like the girl in this photo looks like she's having a grand old time. And Haley was like, yeah, like that couple in that picture didn't know what was coming. And Jacob just like flipped. Like, he was just like, you know what, now that I think about it, like when I think about our first kiss at the altar, you kind of like pulled back from me. And he's just like really finding evidence that supports that like she doesn't really like him, which I have been saying this whole time. So she gets defensive and she's just like, oh, like I didn't realize I was coming across like that to you, because he tells her that like, you know, you're just not attracted to me. Like, I've never been with someone who's not attracted to me. And she's just like, tell me more. He says that they haven't been on the same page since the honeymoon. Specifically, he says day 4. And I think that's around the time they had sex. And so like basically after they had sex, everything has changed between them. She tells him, I usually connect with people easily, so like I don't know why I'm struggling to connect with you. And that's not the first time she said that. And I'm just like, why does she keep telling this man that? Like, that is not comforting to hear that like someone typically has like a easy time connecting with people, but then like they meet you and like all of a sudden it's so hard. And I'm just like, girl, like that, he don't want to hear that. Like, that's just adding more fuel to his fire. And so Jacob was just like, you know what? Let's just die a slow death until we get divorced. And I was like, oh, this is done. Like, this is done. And so then she's like in her confessional, like crying and stuff, like crying without tears, mind you. But I'm just like, this is done. This is over. I'm sure they're going to still try and like put up the front for TV. And like, she's probably going to come back next week again and say like, oh, like I do want to try. Like, I don't want to give up, whatever. But like, I think he is over it. Like, he put it all on the table at that dinner, and he was just like, I am not about to be with somebody who is not attracted to me, and I'm going through all these changes and you're not changing anything. And so like I think this is it for them. All right, on to Virginia and Erik. So before I get into the nitty gritty of what they talked about, their conversation surrounding where they're going to live, like whose place are they going to move into or getting their own place or whatnot, was like a flashback to when I first moved in with my boyfriend. So when I met him, he had his own house and I moved in with him. It was very much like me trying to get comfortable of like making the house feel like it has a touch of me in it as well. When I moved in, it felt like me moving into his place and not really us having our own place, right? Which logically, that's what it was. And so it took some time for me to really get comfortable with like, okay, like I want to change this up, or like put this here, or let's do this differently, because like now this is our space as opposed to just his space. And so like that was difficult for me because like it looked like just a single guy lived here, but I wanted it to look more like a home instead of just a house, right? And so I understood where Virginia was coming from when she was just like, you know, I don't want you to move into my place, don't want to move into your place, I want us to get our own place. And Erik's response to that was like, you know, it won't just be my place anymore, it would be our place when you move in. And when I was talking to Steven about this while watching it, he did bring in like that male perspective where like it's easier for guys to just like see something as the ours. What's that quote? The what's mine is ours and what's yours is, no, that's not it. What is it? Okay. Like what's mine is mine and what's yours is ours. That's kind of what it embodies, because like I moved in to his place and he immediately saw it as like now our place. But like if a guy moved into my place, it would be hard for me to make that switch to be like, okay, now this is our place, because I would still see it as mine. Does that make sense? And so like I understood where both parties were coming from, but it was definitely like a flashback to that. We'll get to Clara in a little bit, but Clara kind of talked about it too, where she was just like, oh, I want to move into this house and make it more of my own, like put my touch on it, like I need more space, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I guess it's just something about like putting the woman touch on a house, really that whole making the house a home thing, because like I wanted to come home and feel like I see myself in there as well. And so I definitely just understood where she was coming from with like, you know, let's just get our own place and start over, because like you already have all these memories and stuff in this current place like that have nothing to do with me and stuff, and like I would want to like, you know, let's start fresh and let's start over. And so say all that to say, I understood where she was coming from. Let me get back to Erik. So Erik, while I understood what he was trying to say, of course his delivery was trash. He was just like, well, if you're not living with me, then this is over. And I'm just like, can we stop being so definitive with everything? Like, it was ridiculous. And then, of course, he brought up again how he's been married before. He's just like, well, you know, since I've done this before, like, I know how it goes. And I'm glad Virginia was like, can you stop saying that? Like, we understand you have been married. Like, congratulations. So that was annoying. When they're having that conversation, Virginia says, well, we can come up with some type of compromise so that we're both happy. And Erik was like, yeah, the compromise is you living with me. And Virginia was like, that's not a compromise. That's you getting what you want. I thought this was so ironic that they were talking about this, because I was recently listening to a podcast and it was talking about the difference between compromise and sacrifice. And compromise is when you put the problem on the table, you take a step back and you evaluate how we can both win in this situation. But sacrifice is when you look at the problem and one person wins and the other person loses. And so what Erik mentioned was definitely a sacrifice, because that's not what Virginia wants. A true compromise would be both of them winning in some sort of way to meet each other in the middle. So for their 1 month anniversary, they went to an airplane hangar. Are they called hangars? Airplane hangars. Yeah. They went to a hangar. He took her on a plane ride, and then they looked through their wedding photos and they had their little cute moments or whatnot. They exchanged gifts. It was really funny because the gifts they gave each other are the gifts that they would want to receive. So like she gave him a blanket with a picture of her dog and her face on it, and he was just like, oh, thanks. And he gave her a framed photo of like the GPS coordinates of where they got married. And I was just like, he don't care about that blanket and she don't care about those coordinates. And I was just like, the art of gift giving. That is such a thing. Like, you can't be buying gifts for somebody with what you would want. You need to think about what they want. So they did all that, and they seem to have end on a positive note. However, for the previews for next week, there is some big blow up, and Virginia is like, get me out of here. Like, she's talking to one of the crew members, and she's just like, I need to get away from him. So I am interested to see what happens with that. All right, let's move on to Chris and Paige. So they start out going on a basketball date, and off of rip, Paige looked like she don't even want to be there. And I was like, girl, you don't have to do this, you know, or maybe you do based on a contract. I don't know. But she looked over it already. And so after they play a little one-on-one, they sit down, have a conversation, and Paige brings up how she knows that Chris was engaged before Mercedes. And Chris is saying that they ended up not working out because she left him because Chris wasn't financially stable. And so I'm sure that's like the reason why he thinks people want him for his money, or he doesn't want someone only around for that sole reason, all that kind of stuff. It was annoying how Paige asked how long they were together before they got engaged, and Chris wouldn't answer. And so I'm sure they weren't together long because he wasn't with Mercedes long before they got engaged either. And so we're seeing a pattern here with this man. That ends, fast forward to they have a pool date. Pool like 8-ball, not pool like swimming. So they're playing pool. Paige brings up wanting consistency and communication from Chris. And Chris says that he had recently called Paige and she didn't answer the phone. And that he was calling her so that they could hang out, get something to eat, all this kind of stuff. And she was like, yeah, I was busy. Like, I was with my mom, I was doing stuff. And in her confessional, she's like, you can't just expect me to like drop what I'm doing. Like, I got stuff to do, I got business to handle, I got errands to run, like same as you, because that's the same kind of excuses he be giving. He was like, oh, Paige had said like, well, why didn't you follow up that phone call with a text? Chris was like, well, I'm not a phone call guy. And I was like, what? In the last episode, didn't you say that you don't want to call her and you would rather go out to eat and take her to museums and go on walks and all this other kind of stuff? Because Paige had just asked for a simple phone call and you were like, no, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, this is weird. So he's saying that like Paige not answering the phone is making him feel rejected, and she's not meeting his emotional needs, and they're emotionally disconnected and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? If Chris wasn't already being Chris, what he was saying could have been valid. I would have gave him that. But I was like, you have already dropped the news that you have a baby on the way. You have been engaged before being engaged to the mother of your child. You just bought the mother of your child a brand new car. And so I'm just like, everything you have to say is like irrelevant right now. Like, I don't want to hear it. Paige ends up leaving the apartment crying. Where were they? I don't know where they were. She ends up leaving wherever they were crying. Her segment of the show ends with her watching their wedding video and looking through their pictures by herself. Womp womp. At this point, actually not at this point, this has happened already earlier in the season. Like, it is draining watching them. It's not entertainment anymore. I don't know why they're still doing this. I'm sure it is all the TV reasons why we're still continuing to see them on our screen week after week, but it's exhausting at this point. Paige also made a good point saying that they don't know what normalcy looks like for them because they keep going through storms, which was a good point because like they don't even know what they're really striving for because of everything that they've already been through. And she sat down with Briana and Haley and told them about Chris buying Mercedes the car, and she said how she's really trying to get to know Chris, but it's hard to separate the things she already knows about him and getting to know him like without those things influencing the new knowledge. I also noticed that like it's only her trying to get to know him. Like, it's always her asking questions, but he never asked her anything. And so he had said like, you don't know me and I don't know you. And I was like, you don't even try to get to know her. Like, get off my screen. Okay, Clara and Ryan. So there's nothing really new going on with them. Clara is still sexually frustrated and Ryan still hasn't said that he loves her. I had mentioned earlier how Clara has been moving her stuff into Ryan's house. Ryan is all here for that because he said that he's always wanted to build with somebody, and so he's really excited for Clara to be moving her stuff in. However, he was a little overwhelmed at how she wants to switch up his space a little bit, which I wasn't surprised because, you know, he's a little of a control freak and like wants stuff to go his way. But yeah, she was like, I want more space. I want to put this here. Your dresser needs to go. We need to alphabetize this. Like, she was like, I'm changing all this up. Remember, relatable content. So they go to dinner with Virginia and Erik, and Virginia and Erik are talking about how they said they love each other and they're all fine and dandy. Ryan talks about how, you know, he's never said he loves anyone. He was dating somebody like a little less than 2 years and he never told them that they loved him. Clara just blatantly says, like, if you don't say it within 6 months, then I'm leaving, which I'm sure Erik didn't see anything wrong with that statement because that's how he talks all the time. And so Ryan just kind of looked a little awkward, like it was just a weird setting to be talking about that in front of them. Clara did say that she has friendship companion love for Ryan, and Ryan just keeps saying that like they're working towards falling in love with each other. And Clara said this, and I think this as well. I think he's waiting to love her before having sex with her. And so at this point, Clara wants to hear him say he loves her because if he loves her, therefore he will have sex with her. So she thinks he's going to say it on their 1 Monthiversary date. So they go on a helicopter ride over the city of Atlanta, super beautiful. Then they have dinner back at the house. And so they're watching their wedding video, getting emotional, hearing their vows, all that stuff. And she thinks he's going to say it, but plot twist, he doesn't. So you can just tell, like, all over her face, she is just feeling like depleted. Like, I don't know where this is going to go with them. That girl's just frustrated. Ryan just keeps saying that, like, you know, they are moving towards that word. That's another thing. He says the L word. I'm like, you can't even say the word love. Like, what is this? Like, what I want him to unpack, like, what type of meaning he puts on this word. Because is this word important? Yes. But like, I just want to know. I want to get inside his mind. I want to have a one-on-one conversation with him. So we will see what will happen. Last is Briana and Vincent. I do not have much to say about them. They went on their date to a lake and had dinner, and they watched their wedding video, talked about how they feel about their marriage so far. They both said that, like, they don't make this marriage feel like an obligation. And so I guess in their experience, they've heard people talk about marriage being like a burden or an obligation or things like that. And so, like, they are both excited and they want to be married to each other, and so they're both bringing that energy to the table. I did think it was interesting how, I already know that I'm reading deeper into this than what they meant, but Briana was like, you know, I'm glad that you like me. And Vincent said, I don't like you, I love you. And she was like, well, I'm glad that you love me. And I just want to point out, liking someone is also just as important, because I feel like you can love someone because, remember, if we're talking about love being the verb, like, you can show love to somebody without actually liking them. I feel like that's what people do with their family members all the time. So I think it's important to like them, because when you like them, that's where that friend aspect comes into play. And that's where, like, oh, I actually want to be around you comes into play. So, like, I know he didn't mean it like that, but, like, I do think it's important to, like, actually like your partner, because then that just makes life more enjoyable, and it just adds to the love of it all and just, like, makes the relationship more fulfilling as a whole. Also, when she was talking to Paige and Haley, she did mention that she is all in, but she's still just a little hesitant because it is a lot going on. Like, you know, they're literally married at first sight. She don't know this man, but Vincent is really good at, like, giving her reassurance and letting her know that, like, he's not going anywhere. And so she said that, like, he knows when she's, like, in a mood, and, like, he'll just walk up to her and give her a hug. And I was like, that's so sweet. Like, just knowing her vibe to that point where, like, ooh, I can tell you a little off. Like, come here. Like, let me reassure you. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, we're fine. We're good. So I thought that was super sweet and adorable. All right, y'all. That's another episode of Married at First Sight, Season 12, Episode 11. We are only 4 weeks away from Decision Day, and then our couples have to decide, are they going to stay together or are they going to die a slow death and then get divorced? I don't know. Stay tuned. So don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.